Camera's on good in the back? Very good. All right, we'll start with Dave on the left.
Ryan, have you guys decided on a starting offensive line?
So the offensive line right now, Austin's been working at guard, and it's been good. He obviously spent a long time at tackle last year, and so he's been working inside, and his every day been getting more and more comfortable getting back in there. So you're seeing Carson, Luke, and Austin inside, and then Ian and Phil on the outside, and they're working together right now, and getting a lot of reps with the ones. Now, the guys right behind them are getting a ton of reps too. And so you're seeing Josh Padilla play some guard. You're also seeing him play center. But then Gabe Van Sickle and Jake are right in there as well. And then, Carter at tackle and Deontay at tackle as well. Like, they're all repping with the ones. I would say going into, this week, we still haven't made any final decisions, but that's really, how the ones are working right now. You're seeing those three inside guys with Ian and then Phil at tackle. So we'll see how it continues to work out. It's sort of trending in that direction, but good news is that we feel like, we have more depth there probably than we've had in a long time. So that's been definitely a positive coming out of camp. Now we'll see how the rest of the week goes.
And real quick, Brock Boyd, all we hear is good things about him and see good things. What do you expect his role will be this year?
I think he's going to play. How much is to be determined, but he will play. And somebody who has had a really good camp. He's practiced every day, and when you're out there every day, and you're playing with the ones and twos, and you're mixing yourself in there, and he's gotten a lot of reps with the ones in the last week. You continually get better. And Julian, I think, is comfortable throwing him the ball. He's got really good body language in and out of breaks. He's smart, knows how to run routes. He can play multiple positions. So, I think as he continues to work this week, he's going to find himself playing a lot this year.
Camera on the right.
Ryan, when Austin came back from injury, did he still spend some time at tackle, or did he go right to guard?
He was at guard before, yeah, and then just got right back into it.
What do you guys like so much about Ian, and how have you seen his growth at left tackle?
Well, he's always been athletic, strong in the weight room, great mentality, intelligent, and for offensive linemen, a lot of it is just experience. And he, as you've seen here, usually in that third year you start to grow into your own, and that's what he's doing right now, playing with a lot of confidence. But he has the size, certainly the athleticism, and now he's getting more experience. So good to see him go against our guys every day in practice to give us an idea of what it's going to look like. But everything was trending coming into the summer, and we think he's continued to get better.
Dave Holmes on the right.
Yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on your group of captains and also on Brandon being Flacco.
Yeah, every year you look at it and try to decide what the right number is. In the past couple of years, we've had, 4. We had 3 the year before that. And I thought the way that the voting shook out this year, this was a great representation of who our team voted for, but also the positions. I think for the offensive line, Carson and Luke were, we're certainly going to be leaders of this team. But when you have Austin, Luke, and Carson, and you get the offensive line union, we call it, like they sort of took from each other, I think. But it was important that Austin was a 2-time captain, and based on how the vote came out, that worked out. But then, when you look at the rest of the guys that were named captains, it's a good representation from each group almost. Not everybody's represented, but close. And when you have 51 new players on the team, it's a big challenge. And so this has been a new experience, for all the coaches, but for the players to bring these new guys into the program and teach them the culture, teach them the tradition, teach them the expectation, the standard. I thought they've done an excellent job of that. So it was more than just 1 or 2 guys. And if there was just 4 guys, that certainly in the voting there was a huge gap, we probably would have just named that. But those numbers were fairly close, and so we went with 7, which I think is the 6th time in Ohio State history for that. 7th time, yeah. So every year, what are you trying to do with your captains? Trying to find the guys that represent the team. I think these guys do a great job of that. For Brandon to get the block O, that's the respect of. So the players vote for the captain for block O. It's Mick and his staff and myself, and it was a pretty strong vote for Brandon Innes. Just what he's done on a daily basis, the way he shows up, his work ethic, his leadership. Certainly in line with the leadership award and what he's brought to the table off the field, and certainly he's made clutch plays for us as well on the field, which we're going to need him to do this season as well.
Berm on the right.
Ryan, with the rise of Jay Timmons and then seeing Simeon Caldwell lose his flag strike last week and playing in that slot spot, what is the role looking like for Terry Moore, for Leroy Roker, and the rest of the safeties?
So Jalen is, sort of the incumbent back there, and captain now, and somebody who has had steady play, and so he'll definitely be a starter. And then Earl has done a nice job as well. But you're going to see, Terry, and you're going to see Leroy roll there. Jay has been, a bright spot for us for sure on defense. He can do multiple things, but certainly gives us a lot of flexibility in his position and what he does. So, those guys will all roll. And then Simeon, has really done a good job as a freshman. It's a lot as a safety to play, but he has great instincts, communicates well for a young player. So the good news is, based on the package, you're going to see a lot of these guys play, and we'll also, play some depth in nickel and base.
Steven on the right.
I guess for starters, the quarterback situation, like I think you probably left the spring thinking, okay, Taven's maybe taking some steps there, and it sounds like Luke Fahey started to come on strong here. Do you know who your backup quarterback is heading into week 1 next week?
Those guys are going to continue to work this week. And so, we'll continue because we're not into game week yet. So these guys are still competing, and we want another week of work to kind of see how these guys continue to evolve throughout the next 5 days, and we'll go from there. Both have shown bright spots for sure, and we know what's important there. And there'll be times, I think, even this week where we may even give them a chance with the ones to see what that looks like. But Julian's had a good camp. Julian's been strong, and those guys have a chance to see in the room what it looks like to be a leader, what the expectation is. So they're working hard. They're right in the middle of it. School starts tomorrow, so that we're going to change in this routine. But it's been early mornings and late nights. So there were some bright spots again out there today for both of those guys.
You've spoken about your tight end room a couple of times. Like you like the depth, but you're still waiting on like a guy to emerge. Like I guess kind of the same question. Do you know who your number one tight end is right now?
Yeah, I don't think it's a number one tight end. I think that based on what we're doing, you'll see different guys on the field. Bennett, Mason, Nate. Those guys can do multiple things, whether it's an 11 personnel or 12 personnel, and then the rest of the room fills out the depth, so they'll play as well. I think that those three have sort of separated a little bit from the rest of the group, but we'll see how this week plays.
Bill Landis in the center.
Ryan, I know you say you're not all the way there yet on making offensive line decisions, but if it's trending that way, like to move a player like Austin off of left tackle when he was so good in such an important spot last year, just what have those conversations been like with the staff as you've pondered making a rather kind of serious personnel change there to make sure you have the best five?
Yeah, I think we try to, figure out, what were the, when we look at all the games and everything from last year, we try to identify, in the matchup games what it's going to look like. And I think we've seen that Austin can play tackle. We think that, he's probably an NFL guard who can play tackle as well, probably a swing player. And so, putting him at left tackle and then throwing Josh or Gabe in there is a good solution as well. So that's why we're kind of going back and forth. But when you look at Luke, Carson, and Austin inside right there, that's a lot of beef in there. And, so it certainly has given us a lot of reason to like that. As long as the tackle play is really good, which so far it has been. So we like what we see there, and we'll keep working on it. And then, when they all work together, there's a certain level of chemistry. They all worked together last week, and they're going to continue to work together this week and see how that plays out. And we'll keep evaluating, but I think that has momentum right now.
Joe Nugent on the left.
After the first scrimmage, it felt like Peyton Pierce was trying to rally the guys. What have you seen in terms of his leadership this offseason that led to him being a captain?
Yeah, he's somebody that he leads from the front, which is important in today's day and age when a lot of guys want to lead by example. He's got a voice. And in that position, as we know, it's really important that everybody's on the same page at the front, knows exactly what's going on and ties it into the back end. That's probably, again, one of the things that probably was underrated. I know we've talked about it a little bit in here, but when you think about losing guys like Sonny and Caleb, it was the communication, getting everybody together. Peyton does that. Because of that, he just is a natural leader.
Spencer on the right, the center.
Ryan, your defensive tackle room, trying to replace Caden still. Hendrick seems to be solidified there, but what are your thoughts on the rest of the room heading into 2 weeks before?
Well, I think we have good depth there. We were talking about it last night. As you can imagine, we come in on Sundays, we grade the film, and then we have personnel meetings later in the day on all three phases. And as we go through all the guys on defense, you look at that position and you see, Edric and James and Will, and then you see, John and Jason Moore, Damari Simeon, those guys can roll pretty good right in there. And then, and then at the defensive end spots, you feel like you have some guys you can roll as well. So that part's good. We want to continue to see guys like emerge, as starters. But I think that's the good thing. There's been bright spots across the board. I think that we have a bunch of guys who can start. And so that's good for the length of the season, the health of that group right there.
What is the challenge for you guys when you say, okay, we have good depth, but you're still wondering if one of those guys is going to emerge? It's great to have the depth,
Yep.
but you still want one of those guys to become like the guy, I guess.
Yeah, I think we always want guys to step up in a big way, and we always want more. So we'll continue to push them. That's at every position, but I think at that position, the way that we're set up, it's like, all right, how many guys do we feel like are playing at starter level, and then we go from there. And we feel like we have almost 2 to 3 deep at each of those positions, so we can roll them. And continue to see how these guys play out and develop and what the production looks like as we get into the season.
Tony Herman on the left.
Ryan, you mentioned Brock earlier. That receiving room, how many of those guys do you expect to play in matchup games this year? And is Kyle back? What's he been doing?
He's not back right now. But to answer your question, how many guys do you see playing? 6. 6 could play.
And that's assuming the 4 veterans and then what, Brock and Chris Henry Jr.?
Yep. Phil Bell and even Dez. I mean, those guys can find themselves playing and rotating in. They've been having a good camp. They're working hard out there and showing up, and it's been good. Good competition on both sides. So we'll see. And then special teams will play into it. Who gets on the field on special teams is critical. We've always said that, if it's a tie, it's going to go to the guy who plays on special teams. So, but our depth again at wide receiver is way better than it was last year, in my opinion. There's a lot of guys you'll see play this season.
Dylan on the right.
Ryan, go back to that quarterback situation for a minute. You said they both have had the bright spots. What has most struck you about Luke and his ability to assert himself this quickly?
Luke. Which Luke?
Hey.
Well, first off, he works his tail off in terms of his preparation. He's in here early and he leaves late. Works hard in meetings. Very conscientious on the field. Very confident on the field. He can handle all the stuff that's coming with it in terms of the protection checks, the run checks, calling in and out of the huddle, calling at the line of scrimmage, communicating. And then he has good anticipation and feel on the field, knows time, situation, score, good awareness. So, those are all positives.
Not that personally or anything like that, but is there a particular area that's holding Tavian back right now that maybe he just hasn't made any growth that you wanted to see for him to take a hold of that job?
No. You just got to keep staying after it and keep working at it. And there's definitely bright spots there for sure. And but as a quarterback, there's certain things that you continue to learn, but experience is the number one thing. And the more you play, the more you learn. And and he's definitely learning every day. And but the thing that we all want to see is like, okay, if a mistake is made, the next day it gets corrected, and then we continue to move on, which he's shown. So that's been certainly a positive.
Austin up front on the right.
Ryan, there have been a handful of teams trying to take advantage of the 5-for-5 uncertainty and bring guys back out of NFL rosters. What do you make of that development for this offseason? Is there any possibility that you guys would go down that road, and logically, logistically, what would that even look like?
Right. Great question. Yeah, I told myself I would stop saying that this is crazy because it's just, it sounds, so I'm not going to say that. But yeah, to think that we're in a situation where we're this late in the season and our rosters are not locked in is frustrating at the very least. But I'm not going to sit here and keep saying that. So what does that mean for us? That's the bottom line. Well, I think, in my opinion, the conferences have to decide if there's a point where their rosters have to be locked in, because once some of these guys become available, adding them to the roster is going to provide an advantage for certain teams. So we're certainly having conversations. I've had conversations with Tony Petitti about this. I know he's all over it and trying to do what's best for the conference. But we also, if there are teams that have some players out there who are cut from NFL rosters that are going to be on other teams, we have to at least consider it and look at it. Do I like anything about it? Absolutely not. But we got to do what's right for Ohio State. So it's sort of a day-to-day thing right now. And like anything, we're just going to try to adapt. But I think we would all agree, maybe not everybody, but that, there has to be a certain point where your roster gets locked in. But whenever I heard that we were in a meeting and someone says, LSU just got a commitment from the Browns tight end, I said, we are certainly in a different world right now. So.
Joey up front.
How have you thought of how is the Arthur Smith's first camp gone with you guys, and just kind of him preparing the offense for the season?
Yeah, he's been a great communicator, a good leader, confident with the guys. Talk to them, ask the players about them, they'll tell you. So anytime you want to know about someone, just ask the players. But they've enjoyed working with him, and I'm excited to see where the season goes.
They talked, I think I'd say maybe it was somebody last week, one of the players, talking about the structure that he's kind of provided. Have you seen that, felt that?
It's been great. It's been great. Brings a great background of offensive football to the table, where he's been able to, morph a lot of the things that we've done with some things he's done in the past. And so camp's been great that way. It really has. Now, what does that mean? We got to go put it on the field. Everybody feels like they're good right now. We got to go put it on the field. Everybody's practicing against each other. There's no wins and losses right now. So, we have to recognize that. But I know what I know, and I know what I've seen, and I'm excited to see this thing shake out here in the next couple of weeks and get on the field.
We're going to talk a few more. Andrew on the right.
Ryan, you talked at this time last year about how valuable senior film is for high school recruiting, but quarterback has always kind of been outside of that timeline for you guys and for the rest of the country. What's the evaluation process like, considering you guys have some early evals in your room, and what are the benefits and maybe drawbacks to taking a quarterback so early in the recruiting process?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we've never. I think Lincoln was a senior eval. I think there's maybe been a couple other ones. I can't remember offhand. You guys could probably remind me, but we have done that before, and that's ideally what you would like to have. But sometimes your hand gets forced a little bit in this world where guys are coming off the board and you got to make some decisions early on. But you continue to evaluate everything, and that's it. And we try to make sure that guys understand that part of it as well. Like, just because you're committed doesn't mean you have to now hold the standard of being a Buckeye. Which, for us, the good news is guys understand that, they embrace that, and that's they've certainly answered when it comes to that. So we continue to evaluate everything. We feel really good about where we are right now in recruiting. We think that it's strong. We got really good guys, not just players, but as people, guys who understand what it means to be at Ohio State. So there's a lot of momentum there, especially in today's day and age with everything that's going on. So that's been great. But yeah, there's nothing better than Friday nights, and to see these guys get out there and compete and play, and we continue to communicate them and check in with them on a week-to-week basis, talk to them about the game that's coming up the next week, and then they're going to be here in like 6 months. So I just try to remind them that this is like probably one of the best times of their lives right now. It's the same thing I told my son, like senior year, playing football in the fall, like don't rush it, because a lot of these guys just want to get to college, but there's going to be a time where you're going to look back and wish you were back being a senior and having fun with your boys and in the locker room after the game and celebrating wins and, you know, going through losses and figuring out all the problems and getting back to work and all the life lessons that come with it and being with your teammates. So that's kind of the message for us. But then at the same time, get out there and be the most competitive dude in the country. Bill Ravenowitz in the center.
From the sound of what you said, you seem pretty happy with almost everything. Is there anything?
I'm not happy with anything.
Okay, well,
Don't you put those words in my mouth. Happy.
well, you haven't complained about this position group or that position group.
There's no blaming, complaining, or defending in this program, so I'm not going to do that.
How happy are you with the progress, and what are your concerns?
I'm not happy about it at all. Let me change my total tune if that's what you got out of this. I'm pissed off about everybody. I think we're working. I think we have a monster schedule, and I think that, you know, we have 51 new guys, so there's a lot of unknown, and so we know, you know, what's coming here, and there's going to be storms along the way. But, you know, I think our guys have the right attitude. I think we have a chance to be a smart team, but we're going to have to be a disciplined team. And the first step to being a championship team is to not be yourself. We've talked about this before. And so we have to make sure we're doing that. I will say this, in the scrimmage, there were too many penalties. And that's discipline. And so we cannot beat ourselves early in the season. So we are going to be, you know, all over that part of it. There's a lot of areas that we got to improve in fast. But there's also a lot of things that I've seen that are encouraging. So that's been good, but we're nowhere near where we need to be.
One question about Peyton Pierce. On one of the videos, I think it was James Laurinaitis said he got the most votes of anybody as a captain. If that's true, what is it about Peyton that you think caused that?
Yeah, the voting numbers are confidential, so yeah, it's not public information. So I don't know what happened there, but yeah, he's in trouble. No, yeah. So I won't get into how we voted, but I just think Peyton, you're asking about him. You know, he's somebody that just has natural leadership skills and feels comfortable being in front of a group of men and you know, leading and you know, letting his voice heard. And today, that's a big part of it. You know, these guys nowadays are on their phones, and so Mick does a better job, you know, as good a job as anybody in the country of putting, you know, our guys up in front of the group, and actually they have to get up there and speak and talk. And the first few times for a lot of these guys, it's hard, but you know, you watch our guys now. I mean, they feel comfortable doing it. With Peyton, it was like day one. It's just he's a natural that way. You know, it was like that in high school. We knew that the type of leader he was, and you know what he did in high school in terms of leading his team to, you know, some really big wins. So, but that all goes back to recruiting as well, like we were talking about. Like if you want that in your program, you have to recruit that. We knew we were getting that with Peyton, and he certainly has disappointed.
We'll finish with Tim May.
Yeah, Ryan, just kind of following up on that a little bit, but mainly the offensive side of the ball. What kind of comfort does it give you having your second-year starting quarterback, Jeremiah Smith? The running game seems to be coming on, as you talked about in last week's press conference. And the offensive line, you have options, it sounds like, more and more. Compared to like even last year, you know, getting ready to open with Texas and the first time start. Do you sleep better at night having those kind of numbers at your back, so to speak?
I will say having a quarterback and a center in particular that have the experience that these guys do allows you to do more things this time of year than you ever would if you didn't. And you know, we think about like a couple years ago, we had Will and Seth McLaughlin. Now they weren't here; they were transfers, but those guys had played a lot of football. I put Carson and Julian sort of in that same realm, and so they get everybody on the same page. They communicate well. The center's got to communicate everything up front. The quarterback's got to communicate everything to the back end, and they have to work together. So that part's good. I mean, when you break the huddle, everybody's on the same page. There's just a certain rhythm and tempo that works. Just like on defense, you know, your safety and you know your Mike linebacker, they all have to be on the same page in their communication. So you know, when you're out there at practice and you know you feel it, there is a good rhythm about it. Now, again, what is that going to translate to? I don't know. we know, again, the places we got to go play on the road early in the season is going to really challenge our guys. We've had the noise cranked up. We try to make it as hard as we possibly can. We're fired up that, tomorrow classes start, so we practice in the afternoon. It looks like the heat's going to get cranked up, so that'll be good. So we're just going to keep making practice as hard as we can because we know we got to play good in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and real quick, just to give you an insight, you were once a starting quarterback who came back for his next year and started. Does it give you insight into how much of Jude's mind has been opened just in a year in terms of being that kind of guy?
It's the Rolodex of plays that you're not doing for the first time anymore. Oh, I have that reference point. Oh, I've done this before. I've actually physically done it. So it gives you a confidence to say, I'm remembering, not learning. And that's probably the biggest thing.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Yep.